In this lecture, we're going to explore the string, date, and number data types in more detail. When passing data back and forth between Qt C++ and Qt Quick, the QDate and QDateTime objects are transformed automatically to the JavaScript date object. We are also going to look at how to work with string arguments in QML, an added feature to the JavaScript standard. Next, we are going to explore the localization methods that are available for date, time, and string, and look at a few formats you can use when you are displaying date and time information. On top of that, we're also going to look at how the number type can be localized. We have a lot to cover. Let's go to Qt Creator and do that. Here we are in Qt Creator. We're going to create a new project. It's a Qt Quick application, an empty one. We're going to call it Other Qt Types Demo. Save it in a location on our drive. Choose the Qt version we have installed. We choose our kit and finish. We change this to show our project. We want to add in a class that is going to allow the communication between C++ and Qt Quick. It's going to be a C++ class. It's going to be called CPP class. As usual, it's going to inherit QObject. And we go in the header file. We want to put in the signals that are going to be used to send data to Qt Quick and the slots that we are going to call from Qt Quick. Control A, Control I to align. We also want to include QDateTime and QTime because these data types are referenced here in our slots. We want to implement our slots in CPP file. Let's do that. And here we are. When CPP slot is called, we want to send the current time and the current date time to Qt Quick. And this is how we do it. When the time slot is called from Qt Quick, we show the time that we receive. We also show the date time we receive when date time slot is called here. Now we want to come back to main CPP, and you know what we're going to do. We're going to include QQML context. We want to include CPP class. We want to create an instance of CPP class. This must be becoming second nature to you now. And we should expose this to Qt Quick as a context property. We're going to say engine, root context, set context property. It's going to be CPP class as usual. And we're going to pass in a reference to CPP class, the object we defined here. Let's go back to Qt Quick and say that we are working with string, date, and time. We want to import Qt Quick controls because we are going to use some buttons. Let's put in the button here. ID is going to be mButton. The text is going to say, click me. And when it's clicked, we're going to say CPP class, CPP slot. Let's double check that the slot is named CPP slot. This is correct. So when we call CPP slot, we are going to emit these signals, send date time and send time. We should find a way to capture the data that we receive from these signals, and we are going to use connections as usual. So we come to the top here and say connections. The target is going to be CPP class. Let's put in our signal handlers. The first one is going to be on send date time. We are going to capture the date time parameter. And we are going to capture the full year. And we are going to transform that to a GMT string. Let's revise the application. We click the button. This slot is going to be called in C++. The slot is going to emit the signals, and we are going to capture the signal here. Let's run the application and click on our button. QDebug is not included. This is my favorite mistake. QDebug. Let's double check and run again. And let's go to QML and see what we should get in here. Bring the app up again and click on the button, and you see that we say that the slot was called, and we come in here, received date time, and we say the time that we received. This is the current date and time in here. And you see that we can retrieve the year from the date time object and the date transformed to a GMT string. This is how you can send date time information from C++ to Qtqueck and capture it in a signal handler like this. Now we are going to add a signal handler for send time. This is not going to be anything special. It is exactly the same thing, Control-A, Control-I to align. And we are going to say that we received the time, and we say the time that we received. Let's run the application. Click on the button, receive time, and this is the time that we received from C++. Now that we are sending time from C++ to Qtqueck, what about sending time information from Qtqueck to C++? Well, we can do that by calling a few methods. We can actually comment this out and call the slots directly that we defined and pass in date and time information. Let's go back to QML, create a new date object. We're going to say var date equals new date. This is standard JavaScript code. And we're going to say CPP class time slot, pass in the date, run the application and see what we get. When we call the slot, we see the date information in here, okay? And this is interpreted as time. What if we call date time slot? Let's do that. And let's comment this out so that we are not confused. Run the application. We click the button. We are going to send date time information to C++, and we should get this here. This is the object that wraps around our date time information. And this is how you can send date time information back and forth between Qt C++ and Qtqueck. Now that we have seen this, I'd like to show you how to work with string arguments in QML. We are going to go to the top here and define a string property. We're going to say property string. We call it mValue, and give it a value that we define here. It's going to say clicked %1 times and say double is %2. And these percentages here are going to be placeholders for the actual data that we're going to pass in here. To show you this off, I am going to create an integer property. It's going to be called click count, because it's going to count the number of clicks we do on our button. And I want this initialized to 0. This is no problem. And if we go down, every time you click on the button, I want to increment the click count. I am going to do that like this. And I am going to change the text of the button to the mValue string here and replacing the click count and the double of the click count. The way I do that, I am going to say mButton text equals mValue and say arg click count. Okay, this is how you replacing stuff, and say dot again and say arg click count multiplied by 2, just like this. And notice when I click on the button, let's run the application. Click the button, you see that the text changes and it is updating as I click. This is how you work with string arguments. This is an added feature by QML. I think this is not available in JavaScript standard. This is something Qt added, and we had it on the C++ side in the QString class, and I think it's a very good thing to have. It allows you to display data very easily by replacing in things like that. So you should know this. Okay, this lecture is getting pretty long. We're going to stop here and continue with localization in the next one.